Welcome back. Buckingham Palace, you can't have missed this story. Today's been rocked with the announcement that Prince Andrew is stepping aside from royal duties, quote, for the foreseeable future. It comes following weeks of controversy surrounding the Duke of York due to his friendship with the now deceased billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Joining me now is Sky News foreign editor Brent O'Halloran. Brett, let's have a look at some footage you've been able to pull together of what's really transpired in the last 24 hours, and then I'll come back and talk to you about the reaction in the media and indeed in the British community on the back of the announcement. But let's have a look at the news overnight.
The criticism was relentless.
The interview that the Duke of York gave was a disaster.
Criminal lack of empathy for the victims.
Total lack of self-awareness.
Shamed for days by the papers, public and even politicians, Prince Andrew finally succumbed.
Prince Andrew is stepping back from royal duties, perhaps for good.
I have asked Her Majesty if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given me her permission. I continue to unequivocally regret my ill-judged association with Jeffrey Epstein.
It followed this widely dubbed Trainwreck TV interview, where the Duke of York tried to clear up his connection to convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
The problem was the fact that once he had been convicted,
You stayed with him.
I stayed with him, and that's the bit that as it were, I kick myself for on a daily basis.
The Queen's second son defended the friendship, refuted accusations he had sex with minors, claimed this photograph with the then underage accuser may have been doctored, and made no expression of sympathy for the dozens of alleged Epstein victims.
Do I regret the fact that he has quite obviously conducted himself in a manner unbecoming? Yes.
Unbecoming. He was a sex offender.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm being polite, in the sense that he was a sex offender.
Companies and some of the more than 180 charities the Prince patronised were already distancing themselves from him. Lawyers for alleged Epstein victims want the Prince's next interview to be with US authorities. The Prince has repeatedly denied he's acted inappropriately, but the court of public opinion appears to have already made its ruling. Brent O'Halloran, Sky News.
It's been bad for a while, but that was a pretty horrific interview, the fact that he did it and did it so badly. I think that set everything in motion. But Brett, how's it all playing out, this announcement that he's going to step back for the foreseeable future, which could mean basically we will not see Prince Andrew in any formal capacity from here on in. We'll see what happens. But how's it playing out in the UK?
It could be to be a prince in exile. There's an interesting poll that came out a day before Prince Andrew made this announcement. It was a YouGov Sky News UK poll which found 51% of British respondents don't believe Prince Andrew's explanations, 43% don't know, 47% believe Prince Andrew's response has damaged the monarchy. So, Peter, I would say that this decision for Prince Andrew to step aside from public duties will certainly placate a large portion of the British public.
And look, in the way of political resignation, you know, I'm off to spend time with my family. I asked the Prime Minister to relieve me of my ministerial duties. No one for a minute believes his statement that he went to the Queen and asked for her to relieve him because he was damaging the family brand. There are reports that the conversation between the monarch, the Queen, and indeed the heir, Prince Charles, who's in New Zealand at the moment, are what precipitated this quite drastic move. And you know, I'm not a royal commentator, but the royal commentators I've been listening to in Britain are saying, you know, you go a long time, you probably have to go back to the abdication in 1936, to find this sort of crisis hitting the royal family. And it's right in the middle of the UK election. That's also another factor as well.
It is significant, and I would say I alluded to in that package before that there are 180 charities that he is a patron of. And so to step aside, it's not an insignificant step to withdraw himself from these charities, these events. And some of these charities do a lot of good work, it must be said, for a lot of people. So you're right, this is historically significant. It's quite wide. It affects a lot of people and companies and charities. And I guess this speaks to the severity of these accusations.
And when he says he's going to cooperate with the authorities, Where do you think that's likely to lead? Do we know whether or not he will perhaps travel to the United States and meet with the FBI and be involved in further investigations at a police level? Do we know?
In the BBC interview that we saw, this train wreck interview, he was asked at least 3 times whether he was prepared to face questioning from US prosecutors. And these are calls which accusers and lawyers of the accused have long been demanding that Andrew come over to the US and face these questions, face questions from FBI prosecutors. He was quite hesitant to sort of be firm in either direction. He said that he would take legal advice. But surely, in terms of public saving public face, you would say that it's the wise thing to do to advise him to go over there.
And there's been a move, sorry Brent, there's been a move on that too, because his statement today clearly says, of course, which is new, this wasn't his position, Brent's right in the interview, I am willing to help any appropriate law enforcement agency with their investigations if required. So that's a big backflip for him as well. Well, Brent O'Halloran, thanks very much for the update and the package. Thanks for your time tonight. Before we move on this issue, though, I want to bring in someone who knows more about this than anyone else in Australia, I think. Professor David Flint. Now, he's a distinguished legal academic and head of Australians for a Constitutional Monarchy, but a long-time follower of the Crown and the royal family, and they're not necessarily the same thing, and Professor Flint will help explain all of that. But I'll bring him in now. Professor Flint, thank you very much for your time tonight. Some people are trying to claim, the Republican types, that this is the death knell for the monarchy. Of course, the way the Queen's handled it, the fact that Prince Andrew now is a long way away from the line of succession, and the fact that this has really been a number of missteps from this man over a period of time. Do you think this will harm the Crown, or will it just harm the royal family?
Good evening, Peter. Not at all. This will be a minor blip. In families, you always have a number of problems, and this is a problem within the royal family. But we made the point very strongly in 1999, when we were running the No case, that it was all about the constitutional system and not about personalities. And in fact, the Republicans attacked us for keeping quiet, for not mentioning the Queen. I remember I was asked to write the first draft of the No case going in the official yes-no booklet, and not one argument. We made 10 arguments there. Not one was about the personal qualities, which are very high, of the Queen. We're arguing, and I think constitutionalists should always be talking about the Constitution and whether any proposed change is not because of some story coming out of the United Kingdom about which the media is excited. It should be about whether the proposed change will be a significant improvement on the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia.
Some people are saying that this is the worst crisis since the abdication, so the worst crisis in 83 years. Is that fair?
Oh, I think that is a remarkable exaggeration. You can go back, for example, to the unfortunate demise of Diana. And I remember when the British tabloids decided, so as to distract attention from their own involvement in the hounding of Diana, they decided they would attack the Queen, and they were quite effective about that for a few days. And that was first that there was no flag flying at half-mast on Buckingham Palace, obviously because it's only the Royal Standard that flies from there, and secondly because the children, the 2 princes, were being kept in Balmoral until the funeral. Well, these were matters for the royal family and not for the British tabloids, but they managed to distract attention and make the Queen less popular than she has been at any time, and that was something which just preceded the Australian referendum, and the Australians still smelt a rat about the fake republic which was being put up to them, and they significantly voted no, so much so in 72% of federal electorates the people of Australia voted no. It was only in the elite centres of the elite commentariat where you got a yes vote.
Just on the question of the management of this issue, the Queen's royal household is always considered to be, in most cases, and I don't think the Diana case was a good one to say that she was ahead of the game and she could read the public mood. I think that was where she was behind the public mood, but they shifted. But normally you'd have to say the Queen's household is adept at reading the mood of the British people. She's at pains to not appear to be flaunting all the station of her position and wealth. She's known to be modest in her spending and her attitudes and other things. Not so for her son here. Everyone who's looking at this got to say, why on earth did he do that interview, and why did he do that interview without having really solid responses to questions he knew would come? That's been his undoing. What's going on wrong, do you think? I have to say he's not the only one. I'd have to look at Prince Harry's back room as well. Is there problems there in the younger royals, do you think?
I think there's a degree of naivete on the part of the Prince. I mean, he knew that the media pack were circling him. He knew that they had already decided about him, and they decided to condemn him on this. He thought, foolishly of course, that you could persuade them. It's like trying to persuade a pack of snarling dogs to pull off their attack. They were really out to get him, and he thought that he could persuade them by argument, and that was a mistake. He is not on any charge. What is really going on in the United States now are civil claims for very substantial sums of money from the Epstein estate. The lawyers involved are going to get an enormous slice of that, because you can do that under American law. They can offer no risk litigation to the people making claims, because American courts curiously don't award costs against plaintiffs who lose. So there's a very big money case going on in the United States. That's what's important in this, and a number of people want to make a lot of money out of this, including the lawyers from America, who you've never heard of, who are making demands on what the Prince should or should not do, that he should admit this or so on, or that he should come across to America in a civil case and give evidence, which is rather extraordinary. I don't understand why he should ever do that.
Yeah, but of course the only reason they're pursuing civil action is because there is not a capacity to have a criminal action after Jeffrey Epstein supposedly committed suicide. That's the issue.
But you could have criminal action against the persons named, the many people, many celebrities named as allegedly involved in having affairs with girls underage. But there is no criminal action. At least I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of any grand jury.
No, I'm not aware of any either.
Impaneled.
No, I'm not aware of any either.
Yes, I think the Prince has done the right thing. Whether he was lent on to do it, he's done the right thing in standing down for the time being and letting this blow over.
Yeah, we'll see if it does. Professor Flint, thanks very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.